apparently some of you like to play the old bow and arrow build. So here's what happens when the Attic Dungeon makes archer builds. Welcome to the Attic Dungeon. My name is Sam, and whether you want to shoot some arrows or shoot some more arrows, I'm here to help you with everything. Yes, here we are again. Here's me asking you to share my stuff across the internet to spread the glory of the Attic Dungeon. But actually, I'm mainly here to thank you, first and foremost, for watching my stuff. The sharing is just a nice little extra gravy on top, cherry on the pie kind of thing that you can do to help me. If you've already liked the video, subscribe to the channel, click the weird bell, and all the other buttons and doohickeys that YouTube has. Anyway, thanks, and enjoy the archery show. Ah yes, bow and arrow characters, a staple in any fantasy story, any fantasy game, any fantasy movie, you name it, they have archers. And obviously in 5th edition, archers are very viable. There's the fighter, the rogue, and the ranger, who are viewed as the staple classes to play as an archer. And well within reason, they each excel at the role, each in their own way. The fighter has many attacks, the rogue only has one attack but shoots it straight out of the field, and the ranger blends it up with some magic and the usual lonely forest boy vibes. But there's other classes as well that can actually make for really good archers, and that's what we're going to have a look at today. Now I have 3.5 builds to go through. You'll see what the half one is. So I won't be doing it in the same detail as I do when I only have 1 or 2 builds to talk about. I am taking the build up to level 10 because 2 of them really start vibing once they hit level 10. And without much further ado, I can tell you there's not really any common grounds. I've tried to vary the races to showcase some abilities that help you as an archer, and with that we'll start for our first archer. I've managed to give each of them a archer related pun name, so here we go. First off, we have the Bardcher, which is obviously going to be a Bard archer. When you start out, you want to max Dex and Charisma, of course, and you can start with a short bow because you have simple weapon proficiencies, but not martial. We'll pick those up later, of course. Otherwise, your basic Bard levels in the beginning are going to be Bard levels, but the thing is, instead of relying on Vicious Mockery for damage, you'll already have a very decent damage output with your short bow and your 16 dexterity that you can easily pick up. What race did I pick for the Bardcher? I picked up a Harandon because I like the fact that they have extra initiative. This allows you as an archer to better position yourself at the beginning of combat, and they have Rabbit Hop, which is a cool bonus action that allows you to disengage. Basically, it's a limited disengage action, but as an archer, not being near any enemies is very important because the moment enemies are within melee range of you, you have disadvantage on all of your ranged attacks, and that is a bit of a bummer. Now, Bard means spellcasting, so we're going to quickly look at the first 5 spell levels, not Bard levels, spell levels, to see some spells that can actually make you a better archer. Mind you, these are not going to be the bread and butter reason why you're going to be the most amazing archer ever, but they do really help get you through those levels, and they're good spells in general. At level 1, Fairy Fire is there to grant you advantage. Really great if you can, if you see combat coming, you can quickly Fairy Fire them and start shooting. That's really good. Otherwise, it's usually worth sacrificing a turn for it, because not only you are going to be better at hitting the enemies, but everybody in your party that relies on attack rolls as well, so that's nice. Level 2 spells give you Enlarge. You can just make yourself bigger because that will make you deal an extra d4 of damage, and a few other benefits. Good stuff. Also Hold Person, of course. If something cannot move, it's rather easy to shoot. Level 3 spells give you Slow. Slow is interesting because it gives enemies -2 armor class, and since your main way of hitting stuff is going to be shooting at their armor class, giving your enemies less of that is excellent. Level 4 spells, Greater Invisibility. What's more fun than being invisible for a full minute, 10 turns, and just shooting everything with advantage because they can't see you? That's great stuff. Level 5 spells give you Hold Monster, for the same reason that we took Hold Person, and something special that we will talk about when we get to Magical Secrets. Now, why the Bard? Because if you look at the Bard features, nothing screams Archer But let's change that. It will all come down to your subclass really, and there's two options here. I think the smoothest fit is going to be the Valor Bard. Valor Bard will give you proficiency with martial weapon, shields and medium armor, so you can immediately buckle up, chuck, and get some extra armor. If you want to go for that funky hand crossbow shield combo, you can do that here, but we're going to go for the classic longbow, toss out the shield like it's Captain America's frisbee, and start shooting stuff with a wonderful d8 plus whatever dex bonuses you have at that point. Yes, your bardic inspirations can enhance weapon damage, but not yours, so boohoo, you're still handing those out. But you have a nice longbow, and at level 6 you get extra attack. So again, here we are. Instead of shooting things with 2d4 from Vicious Mockery, you can now do 2 attacks with d8 plus your dexterity modifier. That's good already. The spells will enhance you. At this point, you're still half archer, half support caster, and that is going to stay like this for 4 more levels as the Bard once you hit extra attack, because then you get to level 10 and there you hit magical secrets, and there we pick up a really good level 4 spell for this build, and that is Swift Quiver. Now Swift Quiver is normally a spell that is only accessible to rangers. At level 13 nonetheless, if I'm not mistaken. So a ranger has to go all the way to level 13 to pick up Swift Quiver. You, as a standard bard, can do so at level 10. So you're outranging the ranger here. Now what does Swift Quiver do? It stores ammunition, but the most important feature is that you can spend a bonus action to attack twice with a weapon that uses ammunition from the quiver. So you put your arrows in the quiver, you enchant the quiver, and then you can use your bonus action for 10 rounds again, because it's a 1 minute duration spell, to attack twice with your bonus action on top of the 2 times that you're already attacking with your normal action. So here you are shooting 4 times in a turn at level 10. Even the fighter is going to be jelly of you. Of course, it is not just the fact that we're stealing the spell from the ranger earlier, but we also have more slots to cast it with. Not that much, but you know, every slot counts. And that's why the Valor Bard makes for a great archer. You get a lot of attacks. Later on, at level 14, if you want to take your Bard levels all the way there, you also get the fact that when you cast a Bard spell, you get a free attack. You can add an archer, a ranged attack with your Bard, and you can still do your bonus action for 2 more attacks if you have Swift Quiver active. Mind you, Swift Quiver is a concentration spell. That is very important to remember. But this is good. If you want to cap off at level 10 with the Bard, that's also possible. You're going to notice after level 10, I'm usually going to give the same advice here. It's a really good idea to go for Rogue then, because the classes that we're playing all have extra attack themselves some way or another, so you don't need to go fighter or whatever. Even though fighter level is not bad for the fighting style. Archery, of course, you can pick that up later with a feat as well. But going Rogue into probably Assassin, I would say, is going to give you a lot of extra damage with sneak attack to begin with, and you have higher initiative thanks to the Herendon race, so you also have a pretty high chance of shooting someone with a fancy assassinate attack at the start of combat for an insane amount of damage. So there we are, that is the Valor Bard Archer. Now the half build of 3.5 is also here, because technically speaking you could also do a Swords College Bard for this. I've mentioned in a previous video that actually the flourishes that the Swords Bard gets can also be used with ranged weaponry. Now it's less ideal in my head because you get a fighting style at level 3 as a Swords Bard, but you only get dueling or 2-weapon fighting, and none of those apply to ranged weaponry, so that's a bit of a bummer. It does give you a good backup for when something starts to come near you. You can just whack them with a really strong dueling weapon, but I have the feeling that you might as well just cast some spells at that point and run away. But you do get the blade flourishes, and it's especially defensive flourish that is interesting here. The way the blade flourishes work, in case you forgot, instead of handing out your bardic inspirations, you use them kind of in the same way that a battle master uses superiority dice. That's also the main comment on this subclass usually, because you're using your support tool to enhance yourself. But hey, if you want to deal damage, feel free to do so. And defensive flourish is actually the one flourish that you'll be using the most. Slashing flourish is going to be very awkward because it requires a target to be next to you as well. And mobile flourish might be a thing because you can push something, but then they should already be far away. So defensive flourish is why we're here. Basically, it allows you to spend one of your bardic dice to roll it and add the damage on top of your attack. And the same number will be added to your armor class. So that actually makes you a turret that just shoots, deals damage, and has a lot of armor class. I mean, there's a potential, even at the lower levels, of gaining 5 to 6 extra armor class easily. Of course, you can only do this a number of times equal to your charisma modifier, and then you need a short rest to regain your bardic superiority dice. So it's a bit of more of a Nova build, and it's not ideal because you spend all of the Bard stuff here. You also get extra attacks, so that's good. But you spend all of the Bard fun here just for the one defensive flourish, which is really strong, to be honest. And in my head, I prefer the Valor bit because the level 14 ability is really strong as well, where you get to shoot a bow after you've cast a spell. But that concludes the 2 options for your Bardcher, and now we are going to move on to the Archtificer. So yes, the Archtificer. Another round of Sam is going to prove that Artificers can fill any role in the party, and for sure, being an archer is a role they can fill really, really well. The race that I took was Shadar-kai for 2 reasons. They have Blessing of the Raven Queen, which is a teleport that they get. You can use it a number of times equal to your proficiency, as with a lot of new abilities. And it's another thing that allows you to get out of harm's way when people are swarming you. You just teleport away and start shooting them again. You also gain resistance to damage at higher levels with these things, so that makes it even better. Also, we want to shoot things with a longbow, but Artificers don't get longbow proficiency. Shadar-kai, however, at the start of every day can pick 2 weapon or tool proficiencies that they gain for that day. So we can just start with longbow proficiency. I don't think a lot of dungeon masters are going to make an issue of you starting with a longbow instead of a short bow. It's not that big of a difference. And if they do, you'll earn your money for a longbow soon enough. So, yay. You only need 14 dexterity for this build. Even though it's an archer build, no need to pump up the dexterity to maximum levels. No, just keep it simple. Your intelligence is going to be a lot more important, so make sure that is at 16. Having only 14 dex means you could potentially have your constitution at 16 as well, and still have points left to improve some of your dump stats, to be honest. First, quick look at the spells again. Level 1 and 2 spells kind of are the same as with the Bard, namely Fairy Fire and Enlarge Reduce are present here to enhance your damage. Level 3 spells way down the road, that's level 9 for an Artificer, are going to include Haste. So you can haste yourself for an extra attack already, which is really good, of course, because we want to be attacking. There's also See Invisibility, which is a cool spell for like niche situations. You never know that your dungeon master wants to start tossing invisible creatures at you or whatever, then this spell could actually be really good for you. You don't need a ton of spells to make this build work. Actually, you almost need none. You need none. Everything comes from your infusions and your subclass, so you can pick up some niche spells together with whatever spells you need to support the party. You're still an Artificer, most of your spells are supporty. So infusions, that is where we are going to pick up for sure enhanced weapon. You could also pick up enhanced defense or a bag of holding or whatever. This build is going to be a bit greedier with their infusions than the usual Artificer is in my eyes. Obviously, enhanced weapon and enhanced defense are really good because at level 10, both of them. At level 2, where they start, they give a +1 magic bonus to the weapon and the armor that you enchant. So it's your longbow will be a +1 longbow at level 2. That is pretty insane, to be honest. And your armor can be a +1 whatever you're wearing, or you can enchant the buddy's armor. They're good pickups. At level 10, both of these magic bonuses go to +2, so that's +2 attack, +2 damage for the bow, and +2 defense for the armor. the main one is the bow one. The other ones you can do what you want, but feel free to fully go RoboCop on this one and deck yourself out in the fanciest gear around. There's also the Mind Sharpener one. It also goes on your armor, so it would mean that you can't use your enhanced defense one on yourself. But that one gives you a serious buff to your concentration checks. As an Artificer, you already get proficiency in constitution saving throws, but when you start playing around with haste at level 9, it never hurts to have a backup. So Mind Sharpener is something to keep in the back of your mind, hey ho, to keep sure that haste will be going the full 10 turns for you. At level 3 we pick our subclass, and that is of course going to be the Battlesmith. It is the only Artificer subclass that really cares about weapons, specifically because if you're using a magic weapon, you can use your intelligence as your main ability score for attacks and damage. So here you are, that 16 intelligence is now being used to shoot your longbow. A level 4, for Artificers, it is so very important to put your ability scores in intelligence, because you have multiple abilities running off it, multiple class features, and now also your bow and arrow. It's very tempting, I know, to pick up fighting style archery, for example, which is a good pickup for this, or sniper, also a great pickup, of course. I haven't talked about sniper yet because I just kind of assume people know the feat, but it's a great pickup. But for the Artificer, just pump your intelligence. I know it's a bit boring, but it's terribly effective. Then you will get extra attack, and then it will calm down a bit all the way up to level 9, as I said, where you get both haste, so that will put you at 3 attacks per turn, and you will get Arcane Jolt, another Battlesmith feature, which allows you to add 2d6 on top of an attack a number of times per day, equal to, you never guessed it, your intelligence modifier. So with your +4 at this point, that's 8d6 in damage that you can add somewhere during the day. You can also use it to heal, but we're here to shoot stuff, so that's not. And then at level 10 is where the build rounds out itself. Not only do our 2 infusions, as I've already said, rank up to +2, so you have a +2 longbow now. You can also make bracers of archery, which add another 2 damage to all of your bow attacks. If my math checks out, at level 10 you are at +11 to attack rolls, and you have 1d8 +9 damage. That is obviously 5 from your maxed out intelligence at this point, then 2 from the bracers and 2 from the longbow. So even if you roll a 1 on your d8, you still deal 10 damage, and you have 3 attacks per turn if you're hasting, so that's 30 damage guaranteed if you hit, plus the 2d6 force damage 5 times a day when you like it. Obviously it's good to keep 1 or 2 of those for when you crit, because when you add it to the critical hit, they will get doubled as well. So that is really good, and it makes critical hits a bit more valuable for you, because most of your damage is just coming from you being you. Again, these are builds that can easily profit from rogue levels afterwards. The assassin subclass, adding sneak attack to the mix, cunning action. Again, I've one of the main reasons also you can take rogue for these things is because cunning actions allows you to disengage as a bonus action, and that means you can always get out safely, almost always get out safely when you're being swarmed by enemies. So yes, I love this build. I play a gunner artificer at this point, and they obviously share some similarities, but this is a really fun bit. I love the Artificer. On top of all of this, of course, you also have the awesome Steel Defender, which is more damage and more HP on the floor, and a thing that can interfere with attack rolls of enemies. So this is a really good subclass for an archer. If your pet uses bonus actions to attack, if that would not be available, if the pet is kaput or busy doing something else, you also have a few smite spells to add some damage. So there's really a lot going on here for an archer as a battlesmith. And then we move on to our last build. I had to stretch it a bit for a pun here because it's a difficult class to rhyme with arrows. The Arrowlyte, which is going to be a blend of the Cleric and the Ranger. Race-wise, I took Hill Dwarf here because obviously there are good bonuses, Constitution and Wisdom for a Cleric, but we swap out the Con for Dex. We want the reduction in requirements for heavy armor, so dwarves don't need the strength requirements to function well in heavy armor, and that's pretty cool because we don't want strength, but we will be having heavy armor proficiencies thanks to our domain. So we're here for that mainly. The extra hit points are also nice because it will compensate for the fact that you can lower your constitution is going to be lower than the average dwarves. So we start out as a cleric. We start out as a cleric of the war domain. That gives us a few things. As I've said, martial weapon proficiency and heavy armor proficiency. You can start out with the longbow and I think it's chainmail, the first heavy armor. And you can go all the way up to plate and not care about the requirements thanks to being a dwarf. And the war domain gives you something really cool at level 1 actually. It allows you to perform an extra attack as a bonus action a number of times per day equal to your wisdom modifier. So that is going to be 3 times a day because we will start with 16 wisdom. You can pump up your wisdom as you go. It might not sound like a lot, but having an extra attack available on top of what all the rest that we're getting is actually really good. At level 2, they get this silly channel divinity that they can add +10 on an attack roll after that it has been rolled, but before the DM declares that it's hit or miss. Of course, channel divinity means it's only once per short rest, but still once per short rest, you'll get a few uses out of it per day, and it might make for a few hit or miss moments, which is good. Also, you get cleric spells, of course. Funnily enough, you get divine favor, so that means that's a concentration spell that adds 1d4 to all of your attacks, which is cool because you get to attack more than all the other classes at this point, so the d4 will be more relevant. But if you're up for hitting more, this particular build is also really good at hitting stuff. Bless is an eternal friend of yours. Adding a d4 to all of your attack rolls and a few friends will keep you going. That way you're not just buffing yourself, but actually handing out the fun. So Bless is a good way to enhance your accuracy at low levels. You also get Shield of Fate, I think, is always prepped if for some reason you would need armor class, but that's not what we're here for. We then take one more level as Cleric, 3 levels of Cleric, because that gives you access to the eternally useful spiritual weapon, of course, and other level 2 spells. And it would be a shame to leave those out because your bonus action is going to be busy in this build, but having a moment to cast spiritual weapon is always good. After that, we're just going to take a bunch of ranger levels all the way up to 5 for the simple reason that we want extra attack, and the ranger and the cleric meld really well because they both rely on wisdom for their spell casting, and because you're an archer you can make a great benefit of the archery fighting style. So there's a few things to get here. Extra skills. We are going to take the Gloomstalker subclass, so that means we get to add our wisdom modifier to our initiative, and since we were a cleric before, well, we're still a cleric, but we started out as a cleric, we have high wisdom, so you will have a guaranteed +3 to your initiative. Again, this is good for archers, allowing you to, it's good for everyone, but it's better for classes who don't want to be near the enemies. Archery fighting style for that eternal +2. Again, you're going to be really good at hitting stuff. You get more spell slots. You get Hunter's Mark, but we don't really want to use Hunter's Mark. Our concentration is already going to be used up by other things. You do get that favored foe thing that kind of competes with Divine Favor for a concentration slot to deal more damage. At higher level, favored foe is going to be obviously better. Divine Favor is a fun bit to get you started. You also get magic weapon from being a cleric, so if for some reason you don't find any magic bows or magic arrows, you can just enchant your own bow to overcome resistances and immunities, which can be really important. So at this point, because this is a bit of a hot mess, this build, because it's a lot of stuff at the same time. You're a cleric who can give an amazing +10 on attack rolls and has extra attacks on top of having extra attack as a ranger. You are in possession of heavy armor, a longbow, the the archery fighting styles, quite a few spell slots at level 8. You have enough spell slots to cast level 3 spells, but you don't know any level 3 spells yet. You have a decent amount of skills, and you get an extra attack at the start of combat because of Gloomstalker. So potentially in your first turn, if you use your full plethora of shenanigans, you can have 4 attacks. Yeah, 4 attacks. 1 because you're you, 1 from extra attack, 1 from being a Gloomstalker, and 1 from being a War Cleric. So that is a very decent opening shot. Which of course means if we're talking opening shots, this is also really up for enhanced damage thanks to the Assassin subclass. I think all of these builds, archers just really benefit from having the Assassin subclass because of your range. You're able to reach targets. Again, because of your enhanced initiative, you're able to act sooner and pick the target that you want to squish with the assassin thingy. For those who don't know what it does, because I haven't talked about it in depth, an assassin rogue, if it hits something in combat and hasn't had any turns yet, it has advantage on the attack, and if it hits, it's a guaranteed critical hit. So that's a lot of damage coming out of these archers at the very start of the game. That's why the sneak attack damage is good as well. After level 8, you're actually free to do whatever you want with this build. More cleric levels is a bit moot. Yes, you do get a small damage boost at level 8 cleric wise, because you get to roll a d8 once per turn when you hit something, but that's pretty much it. More ranger is certainly a good idea, and otherwise you just rogue it out to build up the sneak attack, because the plus 10 is actually really valuable when you're shooting something and you know that if you hit you get sneak attack damage, but you miss, then it's a nice moment to say, but I'll take that plus 10 from my war cleric. Or once you've picked up the sniper feat, perhaps, which gives you -5 to your attack for plus 10 on your damage, it's really cool to say, yeah, -5, no, it's actually +5 and plus 10 damage. Now, thank you very much. So there's a lot of good stuff from this build, but it's a really, it's condensed. It's a lot of abilities from a lot of classes to make it work, so it's going to take a while to get to its fullest potential. But there you are, I presented you with 3 archery builds that are not just a fighter, a ranger, or a rogue. Of course, there's a lot of rogue extras here, but they also work without. Anyway, go and shoot some arrows. Tell me about your archers. Are there any other weird builds that I could be presenting here but that I haven't? And share them in the comments down below. And if all goes well, ladies and gentlemen and everybody else, I'll see you all in 2 weeks in the Attic Dungeon.